Hi, my name is Yulia, and I'm sure you're excited to see me again. I, however, am not excited to report on the news today, and you will find out why in this news brief. Here we catch up with 4 to 6 news stories every other day that I pick out myself based on what I, in my humble opinion, consider to be the most relevant today. Then we discuss them in the comments, so I don't have to suffer alone, and you don't have to suffer alone. Let's get it. Today is another absolutely not a good day in Ukraine. The past 48 hours have been pure terror, with 4 tragedies happening across the country. This episode is being recorded on Wednesday, September 4th, and you'll be seeing it tomorrow on the 5th. By then, you will likely have already heard about the terror and horror that Russia has unleashed onto our country in the past 2 days. I absolutely cannot believe that we still have to beg our Western partners to allow us to strike the very airfields and the very ammunition bases and the very military facilities from which they literally unleash death onto us in our sleep, or during our morning walk to work, or in the middle of the day, or any time really. It is abominable to me that the West protects Russia's military facilities and their airfields more than they protect the lives of Ukrainian civilians. Among those 4 tragedies that happened in the past 48 hours, one of them happened in my hometown, in Lviv, and the other one happened in a city I visited for the first time ever 2 weeks ago, Poltava. Zelenskyy said on strikes deep into Russia, "We need more than permission. We need the right weapons." Zelenskyy stated that Ukraine is working with partners, including the USA, UK, France, and Germany, to obtain permission for long-range strikes against targets in Russia. However, he emphasized that permission alone is not enough. Ukraine also needs the appropriate weapons to carry out these strikes. If you were not aware, a lot of the weapons that were being promised and a lot of the weapons that are being announced in the support packages for Ukraine don't actually make it to Ukraine on time. Sometimes they don't make it here at all because the countries will announce that they have, let's say, and I'm not quoting this, I'm just giving you an example. Let's say we're getting 45 Abrams tanks. Then the hangar where these tanks are being held is opened and they actually realize that about only 10 of them are functional. So when we are promised all of these weapons that Western countries are supposed to deliver to us, in a lot of these cases, we actually don't get them. So not only do we need the right weapons, we need correct weapons, and we need them to be delivered on time, because it's really hard to plan your defense and counteroffensives and countermeasures when you are counting on 45 tanks and receive 10. Zelenskyy also summarized the aftermath of the events in Poltava.
Dear Ukrainians, first of all, about the tragedy in Poltava. Rescue efforts are still underway. The rubble is being cleared. All services are involved. As of now, the number of injured is 271 people. Everyone is being provided with the necessary assistance. I am grateful to all the rescuers, doctors, medical nurses, and all the Poltava residents who have joined in to help, donated blood, and who provide support.
I ordered a full and prompt investigation into all of the circumstances of what happened. All necessary services are involved in the rescue operation. I am grateful to everyone who has been helping and saving lives from the very first moments following the strike. The Russian scum will surely pay for this strike. We continue to urge everyone in the world who has the power to stop this terror. Ukraine needs air defense systems and missiles now, not sitting in storage. Long-range strikes that can protect us from Russian terror are needed now, not later. Every day of delay, unfortunately, means more lost lives. Eternal memory to all those whose lives were taken by Russia. After the Russian attack on the military institute in Poltava on September 3rd, search efforts are underway for 13 people trapped under the rubble. The death toll has risen to 52, and 271 people have been injured, according to Svetlana Rybalko, spokeswoman for the Poltava Region State Emergency Service. And this was not the only strike that happened. Next followed a strike on Sumy. Russian airstrike targeted university in Sumy. On the night of September 3rd, Russian forces launched launched an airstrike on a university building in Sumy, according to the Sumy Regional Military Administration. All necessary services are working on site, and the full extent of the damage is being assessed, the administration reported at the time of the recording of this video. And next followed Zelenskyy's hometown, Kryvyi Rih. The attack on Kryvyi Rih caused extensive damage. Several high-rise buildings were hit, along with 4 educational institutions, a pharmacy, shops, and 4 cars. The hotel building was destroyed from the 1st to the 3rd floor. Update that came later said that 6 people were injured in this attack on Kryvyi Rih. The number of injured in the Russian attack against Kryvyi Rih in Dnipropetrovsk Oblast on September 4th has risen to 6, local authorities reported. And then this next one literally hit a little too close to home because it happened in the city in which I grew up and spent half of my life, Lviv. Russia launched cruise and Kinzhal missiles at Lviv, destroying houses and causing significant casualties. So far, 7 people have been confirmed killed and over 57 have been injured, including 4 children. According to the city council, none of the children are in a severe condition. From those who were hospitalized, evidently not from those who are no longer with us. Reuters has shared photos showing the aftermath of the shelling of Lviv's civil infrastructure. Rescue operations are still ongoing. So, a bit of a personal story that comes with the airstrike that hit one of the buildings in Lviv. This older building that you have been seeing on pictures that looks like it's small and there are only a couple of apartments there. This is a building where I actually lived with my family for a year when I was 3 years old. We were renovating our apartment and we moved in there. This neighborhood is very near and dear to me because my grandmother lives a couple of blocks away still today, and I also grew up there. My grandma's bakery that she actually closed last month but still owns the space where it was in is up the street, and it no longer has any windows. Our very close family friends live down the street from where the missile strike happened, and they were helping clear out the rubble and pull people from under it. Emergency services did not arrive for another hour or an hour and a half after the strike happened, and you might think it's irresponsible. But in fact, it is responsible because Russia loves doing double taps. Double taps are when you strike a facility once and then you strike it again about a half an hour later in order to kill the emergency services and first responder workers. So emergency services in Lviv have been instructed not to respond to catastrophes like this for at least an hour after they happen. So imagine how you would feel if you were trapped under the rubble and you knew that no one is going to come and save you for this critical first hour because they simply can't, because their presence on the scene makes it a lot more dangerous. That's the type of conditions that Russia puts us in, and that is horrifying. And no one in 2024 in the modern world should live like that. And we should not be begging the West to allow us to strike Russian military infrastructure in order to save our civilians from dying in their sleep. The State Emergency Service has released new footage of the aftermath of the Russian attack on Lviv. Over 130 rescuers are currently working at the impact sites. At one location, the search for victims is particularly challenging due to the significant depth of the rubble. And this story really is so incredibly upsetting, and honestly, it's something that touched me very deeply. One of the things that happened at the site of the missile strike is a family was completely killed except for their father, and there's footage all over the internet of him in a state of complete shock, being treated for his wounds while his family is being pulled out from under the rubble. Dead. And then there is a piece of footage where he is trying to clear out the rubble, clearly not listening to anyone around him, and he's having a psychotic breakdown. And it's so difficult to watch because they were all in the same apartment. They were all just at home, and both his 3 daughters and his wife all died. After today's attack, only Yaroslav survived from his entire family. His wife Yevgenia and their 3 daughters, Yarina, Darina, and Emilia, were killed with the Russian missile in their own home. In the heart of Europe, Russia is exterminating entire Ukrainian families, killing Ukrainian children, and destroying our country's future. Our deepest condolences and eternal memory. And Lviv has proclaimed today to be the day of mourning for the victims of mass missile attacks by Russia. And this is not the first day of mourning, and I'm sure, unfortunately, it's not going to be the last. One of the things that a lot of foreigners and a lot of you viewers don't understand is there is this false impression that Lviv is safe. Lviv is safe, or was safer than other cities in Ukraine simply because it's located very far away from Russia. In reality, Russian missiles can reach Lviv. And now that they have Iranian missiles and North Korean missiles, they not only can, but they also will be reaching Lviv because they have more things to play with. Lviv does not have reasonable air defense, and Lviv doesn't have reasonable air defense specifically because it's so far away from Russia. So when you think about it, yes, Kyiv gets hit much more often than cities like Lviv, for instance, but Kyiv has some of the best air defense in this country, and it's still not enough. Lviv barely has any air defense. So yeah, it doesn't get strikes often, but when it does, it really does suffer from them because we have nothing to take down those missiles. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba has called on the international community to condemn the Russian shelling of Lviv and Kryvyi Rih and to allow neighboring countries to intercept those missiles. Shooting down pieces of deadly metal in the air is not participating in the war, the minister emphasized. Indeed, one of the main arguments of Western countries as to why not shoot down missiles over Ukraine on approach to Poland or other NATO countries is because that means participating in the war with Russia. It does not. Shooting down missiles that are going to be killing tens of people in their sleep or on their way to work or on their way to school or sitting at a cafe and having lunch is not participating in war. These are defense measures. And the reason why Russia allows themselves to do things like that and to strike like that is because they know that Europe is not going to do anything. So why don't we show Russia that Europe is not scared of Russia? Why don't we show them that Europe can do something? Why don't we start taking down missiles over Ukraine as a precautionary measure? Because one day, one of those missiles might stray away and land in Poland, and then it'll be too late. And of course, the world cares more about gas and oil and Russia's money than they care about Ukrainian lives. And I know that throughout this entire episode, I'm being very pessimistic and very antagonistic, but honestly, you try living in these circumstances every day. You try waking up every day in the middle of the night and learn that there has been a piece of debris that fell behind your building, or that, your grandmother's store got destroyed, or that your family friends have dust and dirt inside of their apartment because a missile hit 3 doors up from them. And then, we'll see how antagonistic someone can get, or how, upset and how pessimistic they can get, because I surely have very little patience left in me. But yeah, the world, however, has a lot of patience for Russia, and they have a lot of patience for Russia because somehow gas and oil and money are what rules. EU criticized Mongolia for failing to arrest Putin. The European Union has expressed regret that Mongolian authorities welcomed Russian President Vladimir Putin without arresting him, as required by the International Criminal Court's warrant. Peter Stano, the EU foreign policy spokesperson, emphasized that the EU supports the ICC's investigations into the Russian-Ukrainian war and urges all countries that are parties to the Rome Statute to fully cooperate. Mongolia is a signatory to the International Criminal Court's decision to arrest Vladimir Putin, and the reason why they didn't arrest him in their official statement is because they're dependent on Russian gas. There are other places that they can get gas from. For instance, Arab Emirates. They can get gas from Azerbaijan. Also, they can cooperate with the EU or with any other Western countries and figure it out. And arresting Putin is really not going to change anything for them. At this point, it's a question of morale. Also, I don't necessarily think that it's just that, because at the time at which the Russian dictator, was visiting Mongolia, there were protesters on the streets calling for his arrest and showing Ukrainian flags in support of his arrest. And those protesters were shut down and their Ukrainian flags were being taken away so Putin doesn't have to see them. So is it really just about gas, or is it about Russia? Because to me, it feels like it's about not wanting to upset Russia. The IMF will send its first mission to Russia since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Reuters reports, according to Alexei Mozhin, the IMF's executive director in Russia, the mission will start online on September 16th and will include an in-person visit to Moscow for meetings with Russian officials, running until October 1st. If you don't know what the IMF is, it's the International Monetary Fund. Their last mission to Russia occurred in November 2019, before the COVID-19 pandemic. The upcoming mission will be led by Argentine Jacques Mignon. Despite discussions among Western countries about potentially excluding Russia from the IMF, this has proven challenging due to opposition from other member countries with significant voting power, such as China and India. It really shouldn't matter what countries with significant voting power are voting for if this comes to a country actively participating in aggressive warfare against a country that's just defending itself. I frequently hear this narrative that they are doing it to each other, aka Ukraine and Russia are doing it to each other. We're not doing anything to each other. We have lived for 2.5 years under rain of missiles, under hail of missiles. We have lived under Russia coming in and taking our territory like it's okay. And like borders have never been drawn in the world, like there is no international law. And we have only been defending ourselves. And after so long, and after so many lives lost, after so many of our defenders who yesterday were music teachers and dancers and now are forced to learn military trade and are forced to sit in a trench with a weapon and protect their homeland, we decided to fight back. And suddenly, we are now doing it to each other. What were we supposed to do? Accept it and die? Because it feels like the world would be more okay with that than us actually defending ourselves. So, I digressed quite a bit, but what I was trying to say is that, all of these missions, all of these programs that Russia partakes in, all of these Security Council seats, all of that should be void and nullified, because Russia in 2024 is literally Nazi Germany, if we are looking at World War II. And they're not arguably just as evil, and we should be treating them the exact same way. The war in Ukraine will end only when Russia is defeated or Putin is gone, according to Foreign Affairs, or a column in the Foreign Affairs. And I would like to agree with one of these statements and disagree severely with the other one. We're going to go over the article and then I will tell you what I think. Former CIA analyst Peter Schroeder argues in Foreign Affairs that Vladimir Putin will never give up on Ukraine. The war can only end if in one of two ways. Either Russia loses its ability to continue fighting or Putin is no longer in power. Schroeder dismisses the notion that Putin's actions are merely a test of the West's weakness. Instead, the Kremlin sees a strategic need to prevent Ukraine from becoming a Western stronghold that could threaten Russia. As long as Putin remains alive and in power, no amount of sanctions, military losses, or international pressure will deter him. Ukraine must either decisively defeat the Russian army on the battlefield, leaving Putin unable to continue the war, or freeze the conflict and wait for his death. Schroeder suggests that since the war is driven by Putin's personal ambitions, future Russian leaders may be easier to negotiate with. He's right in one way that Ukraine has to completely defeat Russia for the war to end. He's completely dead wrong on the idea that if Putin dies, everything is just going to go back to normal. Russia is not the product of Putin. Putin is the product of Russia. When we talk about Hitler and his influence on the world, he influenced 3 generations because the kids, the adults, and the elderly. Of course, there are still some stray people that unfortunately follow his ideology, but in general, the Nazi Germany was 3 generations. And those are the people that lived under this regime and under these pretenses. Russia has been an empire with this imperialistic mindset and with the people who think that they're above everyone and above the law and above just human life. This has been happening for the past 300 years at the very least. Every single generation in Russia has grown up thinking that they're superior in culture, they're superior in language, they're superior in everything. This is not just Putin. He's the product of Russia, not the other way around. If Putin was the only man with these ambitions and everyone else disagreed, there would be absolutely no way that this war would continue. It's an apparatus, and Putin is just the face of this apparatus. If Putin dies, another Putin will be installed, or someone like Putin, because it is a system. And it's a very dangerous idea to keep pushing onto people in the West to keep saying that it's Putin's war, it is Russia's war. And if you listen to street interviews of Russians, they support it. They agree with it. They cheer on Ukrainian civilians' deaths. Putin dying and Putin going away is not going to change Russia. It's not going to make it easier to negotiate with Russia, because the people behind Putin that make up the whole system and apparatus are still going to be there. So no, we can't freeze the conflict and wait for Putin's death, because Russia is just going to continue growing stronger and there will be another Putin. If you look at Russia's history, they have never had a democratic leader. It's always a Tsar or a dictator they follow. So there is going to be another one of those. The only way for the world to achieve peace is for Ukraine to defeat Russia. So help us do it. Let us do it. We're not even asking for help in doing it. We are asking for weapons and for means to do it, because we know how to, and you have the capability to do it. Let's unite it. And that's all I have for you for today. And I really do ask that you listen to my words, but not only listen to them, hear them. And I hope that you will call your representatives, and I hope that you will continue pressing harder, and I hope you will share this video with your friends and family, and I hope you will try to convince everyone around you that this is not just Putin's war against Ukraine. It's Russia's war against the civilized world being fought on the territory of Ukraine. I will see you next time on Tuesday, and until then, please do give this video some love. Leave a comment, share it, give it a like, and try to show it to as many friends as you can. And don't forget to subscribe to The Gaze so you can see me twice a week with this segment and many, many, many more times with others. And so you can get your news from me and my colleagues who work tirelessly to explain to you and everyone else what it is that's going on in our country. See you next time.